Good evening and welcome to the live interview of On the Sofa. Tonight we are very privileged to have Duncan Shearer with us. But as usual, our host tonight is Vic Morgan, and I'll just bring Vic on.
Hello to you, Chris. A very good evening to you. Hang on a moment. So here we go. Hello, Chris. How are you? Phone was ringing.
Good.
So it's been answered. It's fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you very much indeed. I trust everything is well up there. Good.
Yes, everything's fine.
Good.
So should we bring on Duncan?
Yes, indeed.
Start.
The great Duncan will appear very shortly.
He will.
Just while we're waiting for Duncan, we should mention next Monday the bike ride from the county ground, which starts at around 8:30, I think.
It does. Yeah.
Stephen Darby's brother and uncle are cycling from Swindon round all of Stephen Darby's clubs, which include, of course, the Notts County, Bradford City, Liverpool. So they're going to cycle all the way around there. I'm hoping to be there for the start to help them get out of Swindon. And I think, Chris, as many as possible can turn up.
Yeah. What they've said is if anybody wants to come along and join them on the bike ride to the boundaries of Swindon, they're more than welcome, or just come to see them off. There is a Just Giving page for them. So if you look on Derby Rimmer Foundation, there will be... you can go to the Just Giving page and it'll give more details there, or the website as well. Okay. So
right.
Hopefully, Duncan, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yep. Okay.
We're just waiting to see you, Duncan.
Sorry?
If you can start your video.
Yeah.
The tension's rising here. There he is. Marvellous. The great man.
Welcome. Welcome, Duncan. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, taking the time out to join us. I'm going to leave you in Vic's very capable hands now. But I will say to the people watching, if you have any questions, please leave them and we will get through as many as we can at the end. Okay, so enjoy.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Duncan Shearer, what a pleasure to see you again. How are you, first and foremost?
It's been a long time, Vic, that's for sure.
It has.
I'm absolutely fine, brilliant. Lovely and sunny up here in Inverness.
Marvellous. We're going to talk about your career, of course, with all the clubs that you've played for, including your national team. Fantastic to play for Scotland. And of course, many people will want to hear about your time at Swindon, the good and the bad of your time at Swindon. Let's start right at the beginning then. Way back in 1962, I don't know why I'm saying way back, because I was born before that. You were born in Fort William, which has recently, of course, got international acclaim for their football team, as you'll know. And then you started off with you wanted a trial with Partick Thistle, didn't go well though. And your first team was Clacknacudden, is that right?
That's right, yeah. Clacknacudden's a Highland League team, which is a part-time team up here in Inverness. My older brother David, who played for Middlesbrough, Scunthorpe and a few other teams down there, he started with Clach as well. Clach for short, CLACH. So we both started our careers there. And
apparently Aberdeen were looking at you in those days, is that right? Alex Ferguson wanted you to go for a trial at Aberdeen?
Yeah, that's right. I went through there for a week with one of the other Clach players the same age as me. And that player now is actually the chairman of the club at Clach. So we went through there and it was quite a successful week. We were due to go back the following week and play a trial game, but the game was called off and never really heard anything after that. So just carried on playing Highland League.
Still, to have Alex Ferguson having a look at you, that's not a bad recommendation early on in your career, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. They were just starting the great Gothenburg side then, the UEFA Cup. So all the top players were there, McLeish and Miller and all the great young lads. So building for the future,
yeah. Not Aberdeen, but Chelsea. How did that come about?
Well, that was that was me at 21 years of age, playing for Clash against a local team, Ross County. They're now in the Scottish Premiership. And I played a midweek game. And I managed to score a couple of goals. And I met this lad in the tunnel. He's Rod Klein, his name was. He's long gone now. And he asked me if I wanted to go down to Chelsea for trials, you know. And I said, well, you do realise I'm 21, you know. Then that was really late. He says, there's still something there. So I went down to Chelsea, and it was a bit of an eye opener, and they wanted to sign me on a 2-year contract.
You had a little spell at Chelsea. Didn't play too many games, but you had a good goals per game ratio, didn't you?
Yeah, we won the combination league that year. I managed to get about 27, 28 goals. We won it it was quite difficult, you know, because even then, you know, Chelsea reserves to the Highland League up here was still a big step up in standard, and I managed to get a couple of first team games. But when, you know, 1983 that was, and it was David Speedy, Kerry Dixon, and a lot of top players there. They were sitting top of the second division, which is now the Championship in England, and they were doing really well. Like, so it was difficult to get in, but I just seen it, Vic, as for me as a late apprenticeship. You know, that was the thing that I was there for. You know, I didn't have no coaching up until 21. That was the first time I really got coached how to receive a ball and how to use my body against defenders and that. So I used it for that couple of years, and then moved on from there.
To Huddersfield. Now again, you got a good goals per game ratio wherever you went. Obviously, you got a hat trick on your debut. Is that right?
Yeah, Barnsley away. Yeah. That move came about with Joey Jones. He used to play fullback for Liverpool. He was at Chelsea at the time. And Joey moved to Huddersfield and had a word with the manager then, Mick Buxton. Then there was a young Scottish striker that had been there a couple of years, and it was time for him to step back the way to try and get back up. You know, sometimes you can't. You know, you go back the way. So I signed for Huddersfield. We played alongside Joey at Huddersfield for a while, and so we went to Barnsley and bang, 3 goals in the first game.
Yeah, pretty good start. You know, a bit like Sam Parkin. He got his hat-trick against Barnsley on his debut for Swindon. So you had something in common there. Top scorer in 86-87, 87-88, Player of the Year in 1987. Obviously, you did all right at Huddersfield.
Yeah, but it was always a battle. Every year was a battle against relegation. You know, they didn't have a big deal of finances, but they're a good team spirit. Lovely people in Yorkshire. I really enjoyed my time there. But then Swindon Town came calling, and it was me.
They did. Am I right in saying, I hate to bring this up, but am I right in saying you played in the 10-1 defeat at Man City? But is that at the back of my mind somewhere?
Played. Here, you mean? Standing on the halfway line, I took 10 kickoffs. It was horrific. It was the most horrific game in my career, you know. Everybody's career, everybody was involved in it. It just seemed everything they hit went right into the net. The funny story about that is, Vic, is that 2 weeks later we played them in the FA Cup at Leeds Road, which is the old Huddersfield ground, and we were beating them 2-1 with 4 minutes to go, and they got an equaliser. So we had to go back to Main Road a couple of weeks later. I think they beat us 2-1. So we put a few ghosts, done away with a few ghosts that night. Yeah,
sorry to bring that up. I just thought I'd throw that one in. So I remember Lou Macari saying to me that he was hoping to sign a very special player indeed. And that it was after Dave Bamber and Jimmy Quinn had left the club. And that's very special player turned out to be one Duncan Shearer, 250,000 from Huddersfield. How did the move come about?
Well, Lou told me when I was on the train with no mobile phones in 1985 or 1986, no mobile phones, he had chased me in the train to Huddersfield because he found out that I was on the train heading up to Huddersfield and he wanted to speak to me. Couldn't get me by phone, so he chased me. But by the time he got to Huddersfield, I'd already signed, you know. So, which I thought that was, for me, that spoke volumes for Lou Macari, that, you know, that he thought that much of me. So when the chance came around, I was actually speaking to West Brom at the time, and Ron Atkinson was wanting me there. But as soon as Lou came in, and I had a chat with him, you know, that was, because Swindon Town were doing very well at the time, and right up there in the playoffs positions, you know. So I had no doubt that that's where I wanted to go. Plus, I knew they were signing. He'd made it clear they were going to sign a few more other players, you know, with Russ McLaren coming in and building it from there.
Yeah, you had a great pre-season, if I remember right. I remember it because I was on holiday and I missed all the pre-season games, but I kept hearing about Duncan Shearer scoring goals. So you had a great pre-season, didn't you? But you couldn't stop scoring at that point.
I'll tell you right, there was about 10 goals in 7 games.
Yeah.
And, a lot of them was come from Dave Hockaday, the right back, piling down one side and Phil King piling down the other. So I thought, here we go, this is going to be good, you know. And then the season started, and could I get a goal? Good, just anything. Couldn't. All confidence drained out of me, everything, you know. I remember my first goal was 10 games in to play Crystal Palace, and the ball came up to me, it was 35 yards, and I touched it to try and pass it out, and it bounced up nicely. I thought I'd just hit it straight into the keeper's hand, but he dropped it underneath and into the corner. I think I ended up in that season with 14 or something like that. But it wasn't a great season, you know.
No, 16 goals you got. You had a lot of injuries as well, didn't you? You'd sort of get going, and then you'd sort of had an injury, and that put a break on it.
I'm not really one for hiding behind it. I had a real bad hamstring injury. I came back against Sunderland and scored 2 in a 4-2 win. You know, it was, at times it was good, at times it was really bad, you know. And there was really thoughts in my mind, to be honest with you. We went away on holiday. We were out in America, my wife and I was coming back on the plane, and I remember saying to my wife, I said, I think this style and everything about what this move is not going to work, you know. And I was really on the verge of just going back in pre-season and asking Lou to move on, you know. I got a tap on the shoulder from somebody who recognised me. He said, I see that's your manager going, you know. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, Lou's left the club, you know. So I said, okay, we'll just bide our time and see who comes in and takes over. So then Ozzy came in, and that's another story.
Yeah, Ozzy Ardiles came in. The style certainly changed, didn't it? I think we had an early indication of that in pre-season when I think it might have been Andy Rowland's testimonial when the ball was pinging about all over the place. How did that suit you? Everybody
was thinking, somebody going to take a shot here. I think he put in this diamond formation that we played. And I don't think many clubs or many coaches certainly haven't seen anything about it. And I don't know whether it was luck or judgment, but the players we had at the time really suited that diamond formation, you know, with Paul Bodie and David Kerslake, attacking fullbacks, John Gittins, Colin Calderwood, Ross McLaren just sitting at the bottom of the diamonds, and then there was Tom and Steve Foley, Alan McLaughlin at the point, Steve White and Duncan Shearer, split apart. You know, I'd always played with 2 strikers up front working off each other. Steve had Swindon a long time, and his was over the top run into channels. So we were both adjusting to 2 different things, but it worked great for us. It worked really well for us.
Yeah, I mean, some of the football was dazzling, wasn't it? And you know what, whereas with Lou, of course, it was effective. And I think sometimes it gets unfairly sort of labelled as the long ball game because Lou's sides were supremely fit, weren't they? That was without question.
Well, tell me about that.
Yeah.
I was the latest. I played one game, I think it was 12 stone 7. That was the latest I'd ever been in my whole career. And I found in the first season, I had this conversation with Lou, I found that I was just running out of energy after about 65 minutes, 60 minutes, with a continuous running channels, Steve one side, me the other. And I was never as fit as Steve, you know. So it really tired me out a lot of the games. And training was really, really intense as well, you know. A lot without the ball as well.
Did you ever go? I can't remember, but during that time, did you ever go to one of the dreaded army camps, or was that?
I can't remember when. I can't remember the names of them. I would just be guessing if I said. But I remember one where we would just talk about these lads that were there, telling us about the troubles in Ireland and things like that. It was a real eye opener, you know. And so was the training.
Yeah. So that season, 1990, 89-90 then, fabulous stuff. 27 goals for you and your partnership with Steve White.
Yeah.
I remember one game towards the end of the season at Newcastle when I think you and Steve had 50 goals between you, and then the Newcastle strike partnership had about 50 goals between them. And I remember commenting at the time, this is bound not to be a 0-0 draw. And guess what? It was a 0-0 draw.
Yeah.
But that must have been amazing, because you must have thought every time you, unlike the first season when you're trying to buy a goal,
Yeah.
you know, at this time you're thinking you've got to score every game, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the split, Steve and I got split up every now and again. But after a few games, we always ended up back together again. Whether Steve might have played or I might have played, and then we both got back together again. And we just seemed to have a rough idea of where each other was. Although we were quite far apart in the game, you know, he's between a fullback, a centre back, and I'm between the fullback and the centre back. And your centre backs didn't know whether to come out wide to both of us, which left a big hole for Alan McLaughlin, you know. So they were very wary about it. The fullbacks didn't know whether to come in or not. It was quite complicated, but it worked really well. And we ended up, I think, going into the Wembley game, 27 goals each. And,
Yeah.
It's just fantastic. I don't know if you'll ever see that, because the systems have changed nowadays. A lot of people play this 4-2-3-1. So, you know, I don't know if I could play nowadays, because you need to be quite fast to be up front, quite fit, because you're working in the line on your own.
I think it's fair to say, though, that goals were coming. You mentioned Alan McLaughlin. He got a few goals, didn't he? You know, there were goals coming from all over the place at that time, because the style of football suited an attacking game. It was an attacking game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did. And you had, anytime we were going through the middle, your fullbacks would tuck in. And Ross McLaren was always sitting there in front of the opposition strikers. So, and then you had your two centre-halves just doing what centre-halves do. So, and they had a fantastic partnership, John Gittins and Colin Calderwood, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, John, you know. So, but I still to this day, best team that I played for, you know, that Swindon Town team. Best team I played for.
Well, we spoke to Mickey Hazard last week, and he was telling us that he was at Wembley to watch that game against Sunderland. And I said to him, it's the most one-sided 1-0 I think I've ever seen. It was a baking hot day, wasn't it? Shearer and White up front, who've got 27 goals apiece. So you're bound to get a hat trick in this, right?
I can tell you this. I was back in Swindon for Phil King had arranged a game, a charity game for something. I can't remember. A long time ago. We went back and then we had a wee chat, and I was telling them about, there was a time during that game at Wembley where it was 0-0. Steve White had gone through, and you've got a toe poke underneath the goalkeeper's body, and I jumped over the keeper, and I remember chasing the ball, and it's heading towards the empty net, towards the post, and I'm thinking in my head, hit the post and come back in. So I could tap it in. You know, normally in strike we're thinking go in, but I'm thinking hit the post, go back out, but don't hit the post and go the other way, which it did. It hit the post and went towards the corner flag. So I chased it and tried to hook it back into my left leg, and my leg went over my neck, and the ball went away behind the goals. Two of us were just looking at each other thinking that, you know. So, but that's strikers for you, you know. I always want to be the one that scores a goal, you know.
Well, of course, that's what you're there for, isn't it? And the one moment, of course, and we'll remember the goal, the deflection. Yeah. If you talk to the Sunderland defender, he says it's Alan McLaughlin's goal. If you talk to Alan McLaughlin, it's Alan McLaughlin's goal. So they both agree on that, don't they? Yeah. But a great moment, I'm guessing.
Oh, it was just fantastic. But because it was only 1-0, and it was, you know, we were moving the ball about Wembley. It's just a kind of pace. It suited our style of football. Everybody loved playing at it. And we would like to have got another couple of goals to make it the end a bit easier, but it was a bit nerve-wracking just at 1-0, you know. But I remember afterwards going round the stadium, and we ended up having to walk past the Sunderland fans, and they were all clapping us and shouting through the net, you know, that by far the better team, so she deserved to win more.
Yeah, this after you defeated the B word, Blackburn, in the semi-finals, of course, over 2 legs. We better throw that one in.
Yeah.
That was a terrific performance as well, wasn't it? Both away and at home to get you there. So, you know, we mustn't leave that to one side. That was a terrific playoff semi-final, wasn't it?
I remember Steve Foley's volley at Blackburn.
Yeah.
Wow. To be honest with you, it's a long time since I've seen a goal like that. Fantastic strike, and then the scenes at home, which was a great game to play in as well, you know. And that was us on to Wembley, and I think that's what all the players wanted. I never played at Wembley. You know, I used to get the train past it from where I lived, going into Chelsea, and wondered whether one day that would manage to play there. You know. So eventually got it.
Yeah, we'll talk of Blackburn again later, as you can imagine. So elation. I think Alan McLaughlin then goes off to the World Cup almost straight away after, doesn't he, with the Republic of Ireland? So he doesn't take part in all the celebrations, does he? He jets off to sunny Italy.
Yeah.
So during this time, of course, there's speculation about what may or may not happen at a hearing to come at Villa Park. What were the players thinking at this time?
Oh, sorry.
There was the hearing to come at Villa Park.
Yeah.
What were the players thinking at this time?
I wasn't too perturbed about it, but then we were shielded a lot from that. You know, we didn't actually know what the depth of it was. We knew there was a major problem because we came back from UK a weekend down there playing a bounce game, and we knew Colin had been Calderwood had been taken away early in the morning. So we knew there was something, and then we got back and we were up in the boardroom and talking away with the chairman and that, and you know, he was trying to explain what was happening, which must have been quite difficult for him. And then all of a sudden 2 minibuses come outside the stadium, and a load of people with suits on came in and grabbed all the files and everything, and that was it. It was on to the court rooms after that, which is horrible for everyone.
Yeah, I remember waiting by the players' entrance, and then I think it was about 10 Inland Revenue people came round the corner with briefcases. It was an extraordinary sight. When you heard the news that was delivered at Villa Park that the club was to be demoted 2 divisions, what was your reaction to that?
I was in Jersey at the time with my wife, and I switched on the radio, and I knew we would get something. But when I heard the punishment, I just shook my head and I thought, that can't be right. That cannot be right. To demote all these. Now, I think for me personally, I just wonder whether that they already knew before we even went to Wembley that was going to be the punishment, and maybe in some way they were hoping Sunderland were going to win, you know. But even we got the support from a lot of the top clubs had chipped in and said that was punishment was far too harsh, you know, far too harsh. There's people ever since then have done a lot worse and not got punishment like that. But to drop us that division and then think it's all right, we'll put you back in the division you were in, you know, it was little consolation for us, because we were all looking forward to, as were the Swindon Town fans, looking forward to the fixture list coming out and seeing when the big games were coming up, and that was me denied the chance of ever playing what they call the Premiership now. So.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, I said this to Mickey Hazard last week, I think that team would have held its own in Division 1, wouldn't they? Do you not think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would have been middle to just slightly below. But listen, straight away when you go in there, you know, you're going to get an awful lot of money from that division. So, and a bit like when we were taking a lot of the lads up through the divisions, getting so far and having to come in and bring in new players, probably the same would have happened. I think a few of us might have tailed off and they would have brought boys that could play in that division, and that just leaves it, and that's people.
The following season starts, and I have to say there was the first game was at Charlton, wasn't it? And if ever it was an extraordinary result, that was it. Because after the summer that you'd had, Swindon went up to the Valley and won, which was an extraordinary result. So the mood in the camp at that point, having been completely deflated, I'm guessing. Well, I know because I was around, but to get a result like that was pretty good, wasn't it?
I think was it 2-0 or 1-0?
Yeah.
2-0, I remember it was a really hot day. We played in the yellow strips.
It was 2-1. You got a goal in 31 minutes.
And the Charlton goal scorer was a boy Reid.
Who's that? Sorry?
It was a Charlton goal scorer, a boy Reid.
I haven't got his name in front of me. I've just got Bowden and Shearer in front of me.
I think he half volley from about 30 yards. He used to play for Celtic. I'm sure he hit a half volley just off the post, a screamer. But yeah, I remember it well, and it was a good response for us and a good start to the season. And a lot of determination and a lot of talk during that pre-season about how we're going to right some wrongs. So we were determined that year.
Although it didn't really go well, did it? Not surprisingly. It was a sort of the air being let out of the balloon, I guess, that season.
We just lost our way, lost our way from I lost my goal scorer, Steve lost his touch, and everything just seemed to crumble. It was a horrible, horrible time for us, but I don't even know where we finished. Was it middle table, below middle? Was it?
21st, which I think, hang on, looking in my records. 21st. So just avoiding relegation.
Yeah, that fell down, I thought.
Yeah, Ozzy leaves, go to Newcastle. In comes Glenn Hoddle. So in quick succession, the clubs had Lou Macari, Ozzy Ardiles and Glenn Hoddle. So what are your thoughts at that time?
Yeah, I remember looking back on all my managers and thought, I've got some football team here. But we were excited with Glenn, not only because he was still playing at the time, but he'd been to France and he picked up a lot of ideas that he brought over to us, and also, signing Mickey Hazard and things like that, and things started taking off again, And there's a lot of players signed for Swindon because of Glenn Hoddle, because they wanted to learn from him, and I thought it was fantastic to work with, and a fantastic person. He used to get a bit annoyed that we couldn't, some of us couldn't control a ball that's coming at you at 100 miles an hour from about 20 yards. And he would come down and he would just say, sloppy. And I'm thinking, I'm not Glenn Hoddle. Don't do with me because I can't control the ball and you can't, So he had to learn himself that he understood that, he could play the game really well. There's times that we weren't quite his standard, so he had to change from being a player to start thinking like a coach. It was fantastic. Loved working it.
I remember one big Tuesday night at Wolverhampton, you scored, Mickey Hazard scored, and that was basically the result which kept the town up, wasn't it? That was a huge win.
Yeah. I got a wee stumbly goal. I don't know, I turned and twist, and the defender hit it off me, and I ended up, I hit it off the keeper and got the rebound, put it into the net. And second goal, which we needed towards the end, somebody had a shot from the distance, and Mickey followed in, cut it in at an angle. And that was us. It was a difficult place to go and win,
Yeah, it was a great win, and obviously kept Swindon up. And then the following season, much better. And we're going to get to a moment which many town fans will forever remember, for the wrong reasons, I'm guessing. But during this time, of course, I watched these goals today, and there were just about every sort of goal that you can imagine. The 4 goals at Plymouth Argyle. Take us through those, because, this was at a time when you were playing some fabulous football. Take us through those 4 goals. Remember at the end, you went up to the town fans and with your 4 fingers up to signify you got 4. What an afternoon that was.
Well, it's fantastic because it was, the boys were calling me Double Duncan because I was hitting doubles and I couldn't get a hat-trick. And then that was my first hat-trick for Swindon, and I managed to step on and get another goal after that. But I remember it well, really well. It was totally destroyed them. And any sort of half chance I was getting, I was managed to put it into the net. So, but when I got the third goal, I was really pleased because I thought when I got two, I thought, well, here we go, another double. I managed to get round the keeper for the third, slid in and put it in at an angle. And then I can't quite remember what the fourth might be in a header or something.
Well, there was one from a ridiculously acute angle which you slid in, and you could see the defender desperately trying to get back.
That was what I was telling you about. I went round the keeper and pushed it a bit wide, and then managed to get through. And so, yeah, that was my first hat-trick, so I was delighted with that.
Fabulous. And you had one disallowed as well, didn't you? If I remember rightly.
Yeah, I can't remember what that was about. We should have had VAR and we'd have sorted it out. Yeah. If I had VAR, then we'd have sorted it out.
5 goals, that would have been something. Well, 4's pretty good, to be fair. And another memorable one I watched today was in a League Cup tie at West Bromwich Albion. Now, if ever you want to see somebody hit a half volley perfectly, you should watch this goal by Duncan Shearer. That was about as good as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. This is the sweetest one I've ever struck. You know, to taste of it. I still watch it myself on YouTube now and again. Kick out from Fraser, and I came off the centre half. Centre half headed it, and he didn't get a good head on it. He headed it into the ground, and it bounced once. And the story Glenn told me afterwards. He says, I could see the way you're lining up on it. I said, he's going to bust this. And I'm going to myself, Glenn's thinking, no, don't hit this, don't hit it. And then he thought, oh, what a goal. So he came up and he said, what can I say? What can I say, Duncan? I said, well, what, another £50 a week.
I mean, it was...
Yeah, great goal.
It was a great goal, and you know, the expression, it went in like a rocket. I mean, that doesn't do it justice, really. I mean, it went straight in the top corner. Keeper never had a chance, did he?
Spoke to the keeper, came up to me afterwards. He says, I thought you were just going to control it. And I was turned around and I looked to my right. He says, just to check, I was in the middle of my goals. And by the time I came back, the ball was about 4 yards towards me. And the time I got across, he says, I couldn't get it. He says, I couldn't believe you hit it. I says, yeah, 9 times out of 10, you know exactly where they were going to go. Yeah.
No, fabulous. And as a striker, what sort of goal pleases you the most? Is it the one where you have to work for it, or the one like that, or the header? What's the one that pleases you the most? Any
goal off a goalkeeper. If a goalkeeper makes a mistake and he fumbles it and you poke it in, there's nothing with it. I just love it because I've always had a dislike for goalkeepers. And I like to. They would feel worse. They feel worse dropping a ball at your feet than they would you if you're beaten with a volley or that. So, and I used to say this to quite a few goalkeeper friends of mine. I say I love it when you drop the ball and I just poke them in, you know, just so you get the blame for it, you know. I do like headers. I've always enjoyed practicing my head, and it's a technique that needs a lot of practice.
I think you got a header in that game as well, didn't you? If I remember rightly.
In West Brom game.
Yeah. I'm just trying to remember now off the top of my head. Yeah, you got both goals in 83 and 87. So I think the first might have been a header and the second was that ridiculously brilliant half volley, which, you know, everybody talks about. That season then, the town are flirting with the playoffs, and you know where I'm going to go with this. I remember speaking to you after the game against Southend. You'd won 3-1. You, Paul Bowden, and Dave Mitchell had scored. And at that point, we were all thinking you were after Don Rogers' league scoring record at that time. And then lo and behold, the transfer window, or the transfer deadline as it was in those days, is about to shut. And the news comes through that you're off to Ewood Park. Tell us about the move to Ewood Park, Duncan.
Well, it started off at Notts County. I travelled down to Notts County to meet Neil Warnock and spoke to him and the chairman of Notts County. They were on the verge of relegation from Division 1. And trying to pull out all the stops to get there. At the time, it was only Notts County that run for me. And Glenn had made it clear that he'd made it clear to him that the club needed money, unfortunately. So that came in from Notts County. So I went down and spoke to them, and they asked just for the night to come back and speak to my wife. And then I said, okay. And I said, I'll give you my answer in the morning. But it's looking good at the moment because I want to have a wee crack at the first division. So I went in to see Glenn in the morning, and he called me and he went in his office and he says, there's been a bit of a development. I said, did you go to Notts County yesterday? I said, I went and spoke to him. He said, I'm going to phone him and give him my answer, but I want to speak to you first. He says, well, actually Blackburn have come in, Kenny Dalglish has been on the phone. So I got his number, so I want to give him my phone. So I knew as soon as Kenny Dalglish was the big hero of mine, when he played for Celtic in Scotland. The chance to work with him, and to put him in my manager's team along with Lee McCarry and Ozzy Adilas. But it was too good for me, particularly when Glenn said, that we don't really have a choice here, Duncan. We need to get some money in before next week. Some bills have to be paid. So that's the way football works. So off I went to Blackburn. Did you want to go? I would like to have gone at the end of the season. I wanted to finish the season with Swindon. Not just because of the Don Rogers. And Don's just, I've met Don on numerous occasions. A gentleman of a man, and there's nothing to do with having to beat a record. Records are there, and who cares? But I wanted to see, well, as you said, we're getting close to the playoffs and we're starting to play really well. But unfortunately, when someone like that comes calling, you get a chance to work, and I'm thinking, well, what happens between now and the end of the season? And I think if I had said no, somebody else would have left. They would have taken a bid from someone else, from Paul Bodine or Tom Jones or Smith McLaren. Someone else would have gone. So I decided that, okay, that's a chance for me to work with Kenny Dalglish, and off to Blackburn again. So you go to Blackburn. I remember on the Saturday, I think Swindon were at Portsmouth, and the news came through that one D. Shearer had scored on his debut. And, that's like a bit of a bolt from the blue to a Swindon fan when they hear that news come through. Great start for you at Ewood Park, getting a goal on your debut. It was a great start, but we ended up getting beat 2-1. The funny thing is that I actually made 3 debuts at Barnsley. I made my Huddersfield debut at Barnsley, Swindon debut at Barnsley, and Blackburn debut at Barnsley. And Swindon Town was the only one I never scored when we went there. But no, strange because we had. I was going to tell you this story about. I know there was people going about thinking that that if you take a player, if you take 32 league goals out of a team, you've got a problem. Straight away. And I think the most disappointed I'd ever seen Glenn was when he knew that I was going to go to Blackburn. And I spoke to him for the last time in the office, and I don't know what his feeling was in training that day, but he's, you can imagine being a manager of a team and someone takes away your 32-goal league striker, So I got there, played the Barnsley game. I said we would beat 2-1, and then the following weekend we had a free weekend, and Kenny took the Blackburn team up to Dalmahoy in Scotland for a weekend golfing because we were free on Saturday. We all went up and we managed to get around the table and we were having a couple of beers and that. And Ray Hartford was there. The late Ray Hartford was Kenny's assistant at the time. And then all of a sudden there was 5, and Kevin Moran was there. Gordon Cowans, David Speedy was there, Ray Hartford was there, and Tony Parks. I don't know if you remember Tony Parks, he was manager. Yeah. So then all of a sudden the conversation got around to Swindon Town and about the system they were playing. So that's when I started getting this third degree from Tony Parks and Ray Hartford about how did Aussie started it, and then Glenn played on with it, and you wanted to know how it worked, how the two strikers were apart and the diamond worked in the midfield. And I tried to explain as much as I could. And so why the big interest in Swindon Town? And Gordon Cowans popped up and said, because Swindon Town are the only team we're scared of in the playoffs. That's what Gordon Cowans says. He says, we can take care of it, because they were up top for most of the season and slipped into the playoffs. And they had a look around, he says, Swindon Town are the only team that we're scared of, he says, because they play great football, and we don't think if we get them in the playoffs that that we can handle it. That was the attitude of the Blackburn players at the time. So that got me thinking, all right, here we go. It's a clever move here for somebody. So, but listen, you would need to, that's only my opinion, you would need to ask the people concerned whether that was the truth or not.
Because you know what most Swindon fans think. As you've said, you take a leading scorer out of the team.
Yeah.
Close to the end of the season when you're both vying for the playoffs.
Yeah.
They were a big money club. Well, the first of the big money clubs, weren't they, really, with Jack Walker's millions?
Yeah.
So if I, as a Swindon fan, said to you, Duncan, do you think the reason they bought you was to stop Swindon getting in the playoffs? What would be your answer?
Without sounding big-headed, I would say probably yes. I'd have to say yes. Particularly when I hear firsthand from the players that they weren't comfortable playing Swindon Town. Quite happy playing any other team, Leicester, whoever it was to play. But Swindon Town were the team that worried them.
So how did you feel about that?
I felt sad. I felt a wee bit annoyed, because I only played a couple of games and I was put on the bench. I know Mike Newell came back, and because they had a great partnership in the Speedy early on in the season. Michael broke his leg, so I ended up playing with Michael actually at Aberdeen, and moved to Aberdeen later on. So a bit sad. It's obviously sad for Swindon, sad for my own career. Because I wanted to have 32 league goals and I wanted to get a few more, try and see how many I could get. I only had a couple of games and then just sat on the bench for the rest of the season.
And pretty shortly after that, you went off to Aberdeen, didn't you? You didn't have a long time at Blackburn.
No, well, there you go. But having said that, Kenny had taken me in his office and said, obviously, he told me then, before they even signed him, they were going to sign Alan Shearer. Signed him for 3.5 million. He said, there's a contract there, a new contract for you. He said, but obviously you'll be in the squad the same as everyone else. And then a few days later, he phoned me and said that there's been a bit of a thing, Aberdeen would come in. Is that something that would interest you? And I said, yeah, straight away. Because I wasn't happy anyway. I wasn't prepared at that age to try and battle Alan Shearer. For a place in the Blackburn lineup, that wasn't going to happen. So I moved to Aberdeen and had a lovely, brilliant 5 or 6 years there towards the end of my career.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as Swindon fans are concerned, there's only one Shearer. You know that, don't you? The other one doesn't really come into it. So then you move on to Aberdeen, don't you? And you have a great time there. 3 League Cup finals, 7 caps for Scotland, a couple of Scotland B caps. You get a couple of goals for Scotland.
Yeah.
You didn't get in the Euro 96 squad, though, although you played in some of the qualifiers, didn't you?
Yeah, played in the qualifiers up to the last game or something like that. And missed out going there. But I went there as a fan anyway. I was going whether it was a player or a fan. I was always good. We had a great time, it was fantastic. And to be honest with you, I mean, I got my first Scotland cap at 31. And had you just stopped it there, I'd be quite happy to say, yeah, play for my country, But I managed to get 7 out of it and help them get there. So I was quite chuffed with that.
Yeah, and you score for your country as well, which is
Yeah.
a fantastic achievement. And your time at Aberdeen, you know, I've been to Pittodrie. It's a lovely old ground, isn't it? A great atmosphere, and of course, one of the power clubs of Scotland, really.
Yeah.
How were they at that time?
Well, Wally Miller, Aberdeen's voted Aberdeen's greatest ever player. That was his first year as manager, and he signed me along with a few other people. So it was a big season for him as well. And we started off Hibs at home. We won 3-0. I managed to get a couple of goals in that. Again, you know, as a striker, you join a new club. It doesn't matter what you did at another club. You've now got to convince a whole new set of fans that, you know, you can score goals. And I had to do that at Swindon Town my first year. You know, I scored goals at Huddersfield. And the hardest thing in football, Vic, for me, is to try and turn around fans' opinion of you, because we're all stubborn. We'll have an opinion on a player, and your mate next to you will say, "Yeah, but you can do this." "No, you can't." And then all of a sudden he starts doing it. "Yeah, but you still can't do that." You know, that sort of way. So the following year at Swindon, after my first year, to get the Swindon Town, the Advertiser Player of the Year was a massive thing for me, for the Swindon Town to do that. But obviously, they paid them with a lot of goals. But going back to the Aberdeen thing, it was Willie's first year in charge, and we got beat by Rangers. We split Rangers and Celtic. We were 4 points, I think, behind Rangers in the league. We lost at Ibrox and we lost at Pittodrie against Rangers, and that really hurt us. But we got to the Scottish Cup final. Again, Rangers beat us 2-1 in that cup final, and we got to the League Cup final, and Rangers beat us after extra time with an own goal from one of our defenders. But in general, it was a really good season. And again, I played alongside a young Ian Jess, Scott Booth, and a lad called Mitchell Patalainen, who went on to become the manager.
Yeah.
We all got 21, 20, 19 and 18 goals. So that was a good attacking team, you know. And it was a fantastic start to my Aberdeen career. But again, the importance of, as a striker, going to a new club, you get your goal as quick as you can.
It's interesting because I was thinking about this today. You could draw a comparison with your start at Swindon to Jan Åge Fjortoft's start at Swindon, who struggled before Christmas. Yeah. And then once he got the goals, he couldn't stop scoring. And you could sort of say that about you, couldn't you? Once you got into that groove, I mean, I'm looking at a list now and it just says Shearer, all the way down. And I guess it's like you say with that first one against Crystal Palace, it's the keeper and so it scuffs in and it's a goal. It doesn't matter, does it? It's a goal.
I keep saying, I mean, when I was coaching as well, that's the first thing I say to strikers, even new strikers that joined the first team. You know, they would come to you because they know who you are and what you've done. Although I was a reserve team manager, I would get first team players, strikers, asking me to take them for a bit of shooting, you know. And I don't know, the first team coaches were good people. You know, they obviously knew my history and sports squad, and you know, that they wanted to get as much information out of me as possible, which is an honour for me. So I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, Inverness Caledonians, this all you went to, and you were coaching there. I think on a famous night, weren't you, when there was an amazing headline in one of the Scottish papers, and I can't, for the life of me, remember it off the top of my head, but you beat Celtic 3-1, and it was based on supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Remember that bit? But it was all about Inverness. Can you remember it?
Yeah, Super Cali. That's their nickname, Cali. So Super Cali, globalistic, Celtic are atrocious.
Marvellous. Yeah, whoever came up with that headline, fabulous.
I think they've been sitting on that headline for a long time.
I bet they have. Yeah, they've probably dined down that for years.
Yeah, I was in the stand. I was coaching at the time, Inverness, but I wasn't on the bench at the time. I was in the stand, and I'll be honest with you, I've been to Parkhead a few times, and only managed a one each draw once for Aberdeen. But to go there, and still quite a few of these Inverness boys were part time, you know, getting off work and travelling down the bus. To go there in the Scottish Cup, put put that team out, that Celtic team out, was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But we knew there were problems at half time. There were big arguments and fights in the Celtic dressing room with the people not pulling their weight out, and we knew there was a problem in there. So, but it was just an unbelievable, night for Inverness to go down there and beat Celtic. I remember speaking to in the players' bar afterwards, Paul Lambert, played for Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League, and played for Celtic for a number of years, and he came over to me and said, "Those things are changing," and he just said, "There'll be repercussions for us. Trust me, there'll be repercussions." A couple of days later, the Rangers out the door.
Yeah, sure. So a bit of management and coaching. You were assistant at Aberdeen for a while.
Yeah, well, what happened after that Celtic game? The manager's assistant, Steve Patterson's assistant, Alec Caldwell, the club were now going to go full time. But he had a steady job in Inverness, and I don't think he wanted to go full time. So he took the Elgin City job, which is just about half an hour from Inverness. And they were in the Scottish Second Division at the time. And then Steve asked me to step up from the youth side into the first team side. So I became his assistant. We had a couple of good years, and then we got the move to Aberdeen.
Brilliant. And we'll go back to Swindon in a minute, but I just wanted to know where you're at now. You had quite a successful time at Bucky Thistle as well, didn't you? A couple of Aberdeenshire Cups and Shields and things.
Yeah.
So you did all right there.
Yeah.
What are you into now? What are you doing now?
Well, what I do now, I work for a parcel company now, and I do a bit of delivering away at the countryside, and I just love it. Go in and load my van up, and I go out there. Don't say Postman Pat.
I'm not going to say
in case Steve White's watching. A bit bigger than letters, parcels indeed, not letters. But I also do I do a column for the local Aberdeenshire paper, football column, and I work for Stats Perform. They do the Cally Thistle and the Ross County games, so that keeps me busy on a Saturday. And just happy living back up here. And it's a lovely place to live.
Sure, and obviously, like anywhere else, it suffered during this recent time. How do you think a lot of the clubs will come through this? Because obviously, we hear of Celtic and Rangers who have massive followings, although at the moment they too can't have people in the stadium.
Yeah.
How do you think it might come out? Do you think there will be clubs who might go to the wall because of this?
Oh, I think so. If it carries on like this, yeah. You can just hope and pray. Every day I wake up and I'm hoping I'm switch the telly on in the morning before I go to work, and there's big breaking news coming flashing across that somebody's found a way out of this. Horrible time for everyone. And I just, there's Aberdeen, for example. 8 players were caught out. Not caught. They were out for a meal and they went into a bar. And COVID spread around the bar, and they've got to isolate now, so they'll miss the next 2 games. These 8 first-team players, And my worry is that a club like Aberdeen, who never leave a stone unturned on their preparations, their managers meticulous in everything he does, and then all of a sudden it slips through the net like that. And the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, was absolutely raging. And now she's not a big football fan. And if this happens again, she wouldn't think twice of pulling the plug and down Scottish football for a month and say, right, no games for a month, and that's it. My worry is that a lot of the clubs outside the Premiership, apart from maybe 5 or 6 in the Championship, are all part-time. So you've got boys that are working, and when that comes, that's going to start in October. These people have to, if it's still like this, they're going to have to get COVID tested, which costs a lot of money. I don't know, it's £120 a COVID test. These clubs can't afford even COVID testing, So I'm hoping something happens soon. If not, I think outside the Premiership division, they're going to have to rethink whether they play the leagues this year or not, or just take a year off, because I can see mistakes like this happen quite a lot with part-time players.
Yeah, and we're all desperate to get back in and watch football again. It's great watching it on the telly, but it's not the same, and particularly with no crowds. I think you've everybody's realised the importance of supporters now, haven't they?
Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah. You know, I was at the. I said I worked for Stats Perform for Sky Sports, and I was at the Ross County game last Monday. That was the first game I'd been to, obviously, since the lockdown. And no, you get tested and go in. And you sit there. You normally sit with all the other media boys, and you have a good laugh and can share information about what's happening, who scored that, and who touched that, and you can help. But now you're sitting 10 seats apart. So you can't get information from anyone, so you've got to really concentrate on the game. But and they have the over noise, you know, it's just horrible. But they've got it started, and as I said, hopefully something comes up soon.
What about your time at Swindon then? I mean, you will know that you're incredibly popular still, and people talk with you with great fondness. You know that.
Yeah.
What were the biggest highlight? What was the lowest low point? I'm guessing demotion probably, but what was the biggest highlight for you?
Yeah, I just think the whole day at Wembley for me, the whole day right from the start. I mean, after we beat Blackburn in the semis, and then everything was built up. We still had a few days training on the park and things like that, and everybody was just so excited, getting our suits fitted and ready for the big game. And once you get out there and you walk out in that stadium, the old stadium too, the Twin Towers, it's just jam packed. It's a great memory. I've still got it was actually video at the time, but I'm gonna have to push it onto DVD. But I love watching, I love looking back on it, and it's a fantastic memory. It's a good memory from the kids to pass down to them. The bad side for me, obviously, the emotion was horrible getting that chance of playing against Liverpool and Man United. I know Swindon went on to do that, but I was long gone by then, I'd like to have, and as you mentioned earlier on, but with that team, I'd like to have seen how we would have handled it. Quite convinced we would have stayed up quite comfortable. So that would have been nice.
Yeah, and of course, if they'd managed to stay up for a couple of years, they'd have been there for the advent of the Premier League, wouldn't they? And would have had a foothold. And who knows? The course of history might have changed forever. We just don't know, of course. Interesting times, and I always, from a personal point of view, Duncan, I love talking to you because you were always so personable, and it was a great time to be around the club. It was a great squad, and there was a great togetherness with it, and I just think for Swindon fans, it was a very special time. They really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's just the team spirit was great. Everybody just joined each other. We used to go around to each other's houses and things like that. There was never a group of four there going about the same. You go out with different people, different wives and that, and kids would meet up on a Sunday, and then Ozzy came in. Ozzy came in with his bottle of whiskey. I've never seen any alcohol anywhere near a changing room, and he would have it on the table and that. On a Friday night, the very first time we went away on a Friday night, we're having pasta and that at the dinner table, and Ozzy orders 3 bottles of red wine, and really, maybe only 2 or 3 people, John Gittins used to take a wee glass of wine, but that was all it was. And then you look at the end of the night, and 2 of the bottles weren't even opened. Such are the way it was at the time. And on the match day, Ozzy would have a bottle of whiskey sitting on the table. And I remember Fraser Digby and John Gittins, which is a mouthful, just as we were walking out the tunnel to the game. Don't ask me why.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that bottle of whiskey on the table, and it was pure. Actually, it worked as a tube opener, if you like, didn't it? Just to give a shock to the system to get you going, I guess.
Here we go, but the trust, such was the trust that Ozzy had in all of us, I don't know, maybe if he'd said, like, I don't want any alcohol anywhere near the stadium or something like that, maybe boys might go the other way. So we need to have a beer. But back then, Vic, you mentioned Plymouth and that, that was when Glenn came in, and we weren't allowed anything like that, the 4-0 game. But before that, under Rosie, we used to go, every club had a players' bar where you would go in and you'd get about 45 minutes before you go on your team bus and then home, you know. So we'd have about 3 or 4 pints. And it was great talking to the other team as well, the other players, getting to know them and that. And I love that social side of it, you know. It was really good, but not nowadays. You know.
It's interesting though, when Lou Macari was obviously teetotal. Ozzy, you know, brought that little bit in. Glenn was very much, you know, this is your body, you look after it. But all three approaches worked, didn't they? At the time?
They did. Yeah, absolutely. Remember when I first came in, Lou took us there. There's myself, Colin Calderwood, Lee Bernard, I think Charlie Henry, 4 or 5 of us. We went to Cheltenham races because Swindon Town sponsored a team then. Lou took us to Cheltenham. And we were up in the bar and that. And I hadn't bought a drink yet. Lou was mucking about. Of course, I didn't know Lou at the time. I just thought so. And then Lou went away to speak to one of his jockey friends, you know. So I said to him, "Was you want a drink?" Aye, I'll have a lager top. So I handed the lager back to Charlie, Henry, and Lee Bernard. Colin had a shandy and that, and I had a lager and that. I just turned down and the empty glasses were put back in front of me. I thought, silly man. Thirsty, you know. That was fine. Colin finished his, he put his down, and they were stood back a bit and they were talking away. And I had the pint in my hand. And then Lou comes back in. And he's like, all right, good. So the boys move outside. And Lou says to me, he says, "You thirsty?" I said, "Aye." I said, "Do you really need a beer? You don't have a Coke or something like that, no?" "No, just fancy the beer. It's my day off, isn't it?" "All right, no, I'm just saying that you just try to put something into my head. And I know why Lee and Charlie had finished their drinks so quickly."
Oh, fabulous. There you go. Duncan, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful speaking to you. And, you know, I think many Swindon fans will have been very interested to get your take on the Blackburn transfer, which is a bit of a sore for many Swindon fans, as you know, for many years, and to this day are convinced the reasons it took place. But we know that the club had a few financial troubles, so they had bills to pay, so we understand that as well. But Duncan, fantastic. Thank you so much. And I know Chris is going to rejoin us now with many of the questions that people have asked. I think you've answered 1 or 2 of them, but Thank you, Duncan, very much indeed.
Nice speaking to you again.
And you.
Thank you for that. It was absolutely fascinating. We've had lots and lots of questions. As you can imagine, a lot of them were over the Blackburn move. So Adam, Malcolm, Anthony, and Swindon Sparkle. I think Duncan's answered your question. It was, why did you leave for Blackburn? And somebody actually did say, did you have a choice or was it for the money? Because we needed the money. So, and another one said about the playoffs as well. Did they buy you because of the playoffs? So they're all the Blackburn ones. So we've got one from Anna on Twitter. Did you like the Postman Pat monocle? And were you aware that it was sealed when you joined Ian Jess at Aberdeen?
I don't know. I didn't know what it was. I think that's probably where it came from. Steve White lays claim to it. But then the funny thing was, I mentioned earlier on, I'm now delivering parcels. Maybe someone's seen the future before I did.
I think you've touched on this one as well, actually, from Swindon Sparkle. Do you remember the disallowed goal that you scored or did not score at Home Park for Swindon on the 5th of October 1991? So very accurate there. So I think we've covered that one as well. James Spencer, who was your best mates at Swindon and did you enjoy the nightlife? Not when Lou was there, of course.
Well, to be honest with you, there wasn't really a great deal of nightlife in Swindon at the time. I don't remember ever going to any nightclubs or that. We only went out as a team. We went out as 4 or 5 as we go out, but we always had our partners with us. We'd go out to Malabar, places like that, and have a nice meal and then have a few beers. And I think we liked barbecues as well around it. I think that's a lot to do with having that team spirit. you know, that we all enjoyed it. I don't remember too much about going into. We used to go up to Old Town sometimes as a team, but not as much as Aberdeen and places like that. We didn't go out too much.
I think it was only the Brunel Rooms that was a nightclub in those days. So yes. What else have we got? What are the shirts in the background behind over your head?
All right. Okay, that's international shirts. The light blue one is San Marino. The one in the middle, the white one, is Greece. And the other one's Malta. That's all I always got the big clubs when I was playing international. I always got the big San Marinos and the Faroe Islands. But I've got my Swindon ones up there.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm fighting to touch this in case it goes off. I don't know if you can see.
All right. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, yes.
The
Yeah.
Wembley
Oh,
one,
fantastic.
Aberdeen and things like that. So good.
Yeah,
Would
that's
you
one
keep
of the questions actually. If you got your playoff shirt, so
Yeah, definitely got it there.
that's up there.
Yeah.
Where'd you keep your caps, Duncan? Is that in a cabinet as well?
Yeah, that was my first debut. That was Finland away, and I've got the other 4 up in the far corner.
Brilliant.
I gave away a couple. I'll give one to my parents and things like that. So, and my son's already booked all these when I decide to move on somewhere else.
So we have a question here from Christian. If you played against Colin Calderwood and Fraser Digby, would you fancy your chances?
Oh, easy. Yeah. Get a penalty against Colin Calderwood. Absolutely easy. What a man for giving away penalties. But no, listen here. I have to say he was the best captain that I've played under. Fantastic attitude. I remember when he came back from his bad knee cruciate injury, you know, and we only had, God bless him, Kevin Morris was the physio at the time. So Colin had to do a lot himself and get a lot of help. And I've never seen anyone work so hard to get back from an injury. And so it was good to see him back. But he's a fantastic player, and I'm delighted that he went on and got quite a few. Vic might tell you how many caps Colin got. I don't know. Did he get 30 or something like that, or 25?
Oh, hang on, I'll just check for you. Give me a minute, and I'll have a look.
He played in the big World Cup at Brazil.
He did. He did at in France.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the opening game. Yeah.
I was there watching him. I had a can of beer in my hand, but I made sure Lou McCarry wasn't watching me.
Carry on, Chris, and I'll just check for you.
Yeah. Another one from Christian. What is your most treasured Swindon Town souvenir that you still own? Is it your shirts?
Yeah, my shirt from Wembley.
Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic.
36 caps for Scott.
That's fantastic because he was quite late coming into it as well, you know.
Mm-hmm. And we've got a couple of questions here about Ozzy's time.
Mm-hmm.
Did Ozzy sell his totally different style of football to the squad, and did it meet with any negativity from the team?
No, not one bit.
No.
Straight away it came in. Wasn't sure what Chick Bates thought about it, to be honest with you. Chick was stayed on as the assistant. I remember one training session, well, probably with the first training session, we had the 2 men in the middle chasing around the circle, and it was getting a bit rubbish. So Chick says, right, everybody on the line, and we knew what that meant. That means you're going to run, you know. And Ozzy stopped him and said, no. He says, no running, football. The football does the running. We pass the ball, pass all the time. So I think Chick had a rough idea of what kind of manager he was going to be. He just wants to play football. You know, that's the way he was brought up. And loved the time, loved it.
Well, World Cup winner, a fabulous player. I mean, you couldn't really argue with that. Yeah.
Brilliant, yeah.
And going to the end of Ozzy's time, is it true that Ozzy just came in one day without any notice and announced he was going to Newcastle?
I'll be honest with you, I can't remember when he actually told us, whether we knew before, whether it hit the papers, or I think, if I remember rightly, I remember someone saying Ozzy won't be at training today. He's got something on, and then they whispered round that he was away talking to Newcastle. Hey, listen, like a player, any player, it's his prerogative to go and do that. But we were pretty upset that he'd left.
Yeah.
But we soon cheered up.
Yeah.
Soon cheered up.
The bad news is Ozzy Ardiles is leaving.
Yeah.
The good news is Glenn Hoddle's coming in.
Yeah, fantastic appointment.
Not like today with social media, they would have known before Ozzy did.
Yeah.
So that's all the questions we've got. I just got a couple of statements from Peter Walters. It was because of you he started to support in Swindon. Thank you very much.
Well,
So I don't know if that's genuine. Thank you very much or thanks very much.
Okay.
I'm sure it's the initial. And Dan Slade, you would have scored loads of goals in the Premier League. Absolute quality.
That's very kind of you, Dan. I wish I'd had the chance.
Do you have you watched Swindon's progress this season or last season, I should say, with interest?
Bits and pieces of it. They're jumping up and down the divisions that much as they lose touch of where they are at times. But still got an eye on them. Of course I have.
Yeah. Well, we should say they've got just today. I'm just going to put this in quickly. This Saturday, they've got a home friendly against Coventry, who are now a championship team, of course, at 3:00.
Oh, wow.
You can't go, obviously, but you can watch it on Premier Sports if you wish to subscribe to Premier Sports for the match.
Yeah.
So there we are.
There you go. Just one more question. Sorry, Duncan, it's just come through. Do you keep in touch with any of your ex-teammates from Swindon?
Yeah. David Kerslake, I keep in touch with, and I keep in touch with Paul King every now and again. Phil's a busy boy, always trying to get people in Alan McLaughlin and things like that. So yeah. Tom Jones as well. Tom's a good friend of mine. I got on well with Tom at Swindon.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Duncan. That was very, very interesting.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, and thanks very Vic for a very good interview. Sorry.
So it's a great pleasure to speak to Duncan. I was trying to work out when the last time I saw you was that Saturday before you decided that you were going to Blackburn. So that was some years ago. That was in 1992, believe it or not.
Are you still involved yourself, Vic? Are you still involved with the radios and?
I'm retired now, Duncan. I say retired, but full-time grandparent. So I don't think I'm retired at the moment. So yeah.
So thank you very much, both. And if anybody wants to read any more about it, Duncan has got a book out here, but I think Vic did say he got the last one on Amazon today. So
I did, yeah. It's on its way to my house as we speak, I hope. Maybe somebody could deliver it for me, Duncan. You never know.
I'll get Steve White on the job.
Yeah.
And just a reminder to everybody, we still have got the infographics on sale. So if you want to go to the website, we've still got those on sale as well. Thank you very much. Just a reminder of the Derby Rimmer cycle race that will be next Monday, covering all of Stephen Darby's grounds. Leaving the county ground about 8:30. Love to see anybody down there who wants to either come and wave them off, or if you want to join them on a cycle ride to the boundary of Swindon. And next week at the same time, 6:30 on Monday, we have the pleasure of John Moncur. So we'll see you all on next Monday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Cheers, Duncan, very much. Thank you.
You watch yourself, Paul.
And you take
Thanks,
care.
Chris.
Thank